After the establishment of the State of Israel, and especially after the 60s war, and the feeling that the redemption is here, and we are very close to the entire and the whole Geula, there were a few congregations in Israel that claimed that something must be changed on Tisha B'Av and the fasting days that are connected to the destruction, to the Churban. And they claimed that, it's kind of a denial of the blessing and the glorification that we have now here in the State of Israel, and it's not the right thing to do. We have to combine the fact that we are still not in the whole Geula with the fact that we made a lot of steps ahead. I'm not going to deal with the halachic question, and personally I think it's a wrong thing to do. Personally I think that we must enhance and promote and do everything on Yom HaAtzmaut, and Tisha B'Av continue to be a very extreme day of understanding what do we miss, still miss, and what is the meaning of the destruction, and not to balance between those two notions, the opposite to do, to make them much stronger in this direction and in this direction. But this is my halachic and philosophy opinion. What we are going to study today is the fact that we are not the first ones that asked this question. Actually, 2,500 years ago, a very similar question was asked. And the prophet Zechariah actually had to answer and got a message from the divine. What is the real approach of the fasting days, of Tisha B'Av? And therefore, I want to go back to the roots and deal with the sources. Not trying now to deal if this is the right time to do that or to do that, but what are the roots and the sources that we are actually have to connect ourselves when we are dealing about the meaning of Tisha B'Av now, today. Starting with apologizing, when I speak in all kinds of world conferences, I always say that I speak the most common language in the world, and that is lousy English. I'll do my best. I'll read the psukim in Hebrew, but you'll get them on the screen and translate it into English. And therefore, maybe if you hear my English, you'll feel more distracted also. So it will be part of Tisha B'Av to ask, how could he abuse the English language? But I'll try to do my best. Let's start with the background. The background starts actually in the end of the first temple, Beit Rishon, the destruction, and the fact that we were distributed all over the world. 150 years before Mamlechet Shomron, the Ephraim kingdom, that who knows where they are until today, and on the destruction, during the destructions, Yehuda and Binyamin tribes were actually all over the world. And not suddenly, as Hashem promised, the Koresh declaration appeared. The approach towards the Koresh declaration was here and there. It was much less than we expected. Yeshayahu actually promised that the declaration will be something big, and he will build the town, and he will finance it, and who knows what. And the declaration actually was a permission to leave and to go to the land of Israel to build the Beis Mikdash, the temple, and people that will stay there in the diaspora, and most of them did it, can buy the bonds, and pay for it and take money out of the Persian empire and build Jerusalem. It was much more that we had, because it was a permission to come back to the Holy Land and build it. Not many people came. Rabbi Yehuda Levi describes it with the psukim from Shir HaShirim, when the king, the uncle, is knocking on her door and is asking, open, pitchi li achoti ra'yati yonati tamati, and she says, I'm not dressed anymore, I took a shower already, and she didn't open. These are the psukim that are symbolizing what happened to the Jewish nation. The Jewish nation didn't respond immediately towards the ability to come back, and a few came here and a few came there, and all kinds of levels of the society. Many of the very low, let's call it floors of the society decided to come to the land of Israel because it's the new world. Maybe they'll be able to integrate from the beginning. And it wasn't a big movement towards the land of Israel. More than that, unexpected. This land wasn't empty. And our enemies in the beginning wanted to be part of us. At least they said that. But when we refused and we said, this is our temple, this is our Beis Mikdash, we have a special treaty with Hashem, a special connection, then they became enemies, and they did everything in order to stop and to interfere and to actually cancel the Koresh declaration. They succeeded, partially at least. The declaration wasn't cancelled, but it was suspended, freezed. And it's like a reassessment that they announced, the Persian Empire announced that they are doing, and we had to stop to build the Beis Mikdash. We'll see later on, we didn't have even rain, so we felt like Hashem is against us in every aspect, and the feelings and the morality and the moral and whatever was very, very, very low. Unexpected again, the prophets Haggai and Zechariah, on the second year of Daryavesh, blamed us, I mean the Jewish nation, and said, we are responsible to the fact that we are not building the Beis Mikdash. That was a big surprise. We? To blame us? We are suffering. We are having this tough time. How come the Persian Empire doesn't let us? And that prophet said, it's you. Go back, build, everything will be okay. You'll find a way to consider it with the authorities in where far from here. Build the Beis Mikdash. And this is one of the very rare stories in the whole Tanakh, in the whole Bible, where the prophets succeeded. Actually, the movement of building the Beis Mikdash started. And it took 4 years between the second year of Daryavesh and the 6th year of Daryavesh to accomplish the whole structure and to open the gates of the second Beis Mikdash. It's a great story, but we are now talking about what happened in the 4th year, in the middle of this time between the 2nd year and the 6th year of Daryavesh. People felt, and now you can understand why are we learning this prophecy today, those chapters, people felt there that it's time to stop fasting and to stop mourning and to stop saying kinot and read Eicha because of the destruction of the first Beis Mikdash. The destruction ended. And now we are building the second Beis Mikdash. And because we are now building and we are very close to the end, maybe this is the time, and you see it's actually exactly like what I started with. This is the time where we should stop and concentrate in the future, not memorizing the past, and to change this day, make it a regular day, Tisha B'Av. So the prophet Zechariah describes what happened. ויהי בשנת 4 לדריווש המלך, היה דבר אדוני אל זכריה ב4 לחודש ה9 בכסלו. וישלח בית אל שרעצר ורגם מלך ואנשיו, לחלות את פני אדוני, לאמור אל הכהנים אשר לבית אדוני צבאות ולנביאים לאמור, האבכה בחודש המישי, הנזר כאשר עשיתי זה כמה שנים, a few decades we're fasting and we are stopping our regular life and we're mourning on Tisha B'Av. It's time to stop. Is it the time to stop? And this is the question that the prophet was asked. The answer is actually a big story that is, we'll read 2 chapters about the answer. You'll be surprised, or maybe not, to discover that the prophet didn't say yes or no, because he actually used the advantage not only to say yes or no, fast, not fast. It's not a halachic question. It's an opportunity to change the whole approach towards the fasting and towards everything that is connected to Tisha B'Av and to the fast. And everyone will understand exactly if yes or no after he will listen to the big lesson that the prophet said and gave them as an answer. And we'll do the same thing. We'll read the prophet answer and we'll see that there is no yes or no answer, but everyone will understand what should we do, and everyone can understand what I said before, the roots of the answer, what we now in the 21st century should do according to these rules. The first thing that the prophet said to the delegation that came in front of him was, you should change the entire concept of fasting. What is the idea behind fasting? And actually, what he says is very similar to what all of you know about changing the approach towards the korbanot, towards the offering. All the prophets said it. You are wrong in your concept. You think that God, Hashem, needs the sacrificing, it's his interests, or the fasting is something that you are giving as a present to Hashem. The direction of the fasting is not towards Hashem. He doesn't need it. The fasting is something that should change us. Exactly like Yuval said, Kir'u levavchem, tear your heart, ve'al bigdechem, and not your clothes, when you are full of sadness. Because tearing clothes is something that is an external process. Tear your heart is changing yourself. If you remember Yom Kippur Haftarah that we read in the morning, the same thing Yeshayahu says. Halo zet tzom evchareo. This is the fasting day that I actually want. And he speaks about changing the entire approach towards the slaves, towards the poor people, towards the hungry people. The fasting day is not something that stands by itself. It's only creating an environment around things that should happen in converting ourselves from one approach towards a different one. Let's read, first of all, the changing of the concept of the fasting day. It's in Zechariah, Vahi dvar Adonai tzevaot elai lemor. Tell them, אמור אל כל עם הארץ ולכהנים לאמור, כי צמתם וספוד בחמישי ובשביעי, וזה 70 שנה, 70 years of fasting. הצום צמתוני אני? Is it from me? Do I need your fasting? וכי תאכלו וכי תשתו, and when you are eating and drinking. הלא אתם האוכלים ואתם השותים. So first of all, understand, fasting is not a given thing that we are trying to deliver towards the divine. Fasting is something that has to create something in our soul, and it's not eating or eating. This is not the issue. This is the environment. The issue is listening and understanding, and we'll see it immediately. Why did the destruction took place in the first time? And what should we do now in order to be part of the redemption? That's exactly what the prophet says. And he starts, הלא את הדברים אשר קרא אדוני ביד הנביאים הראשונים, בהיות ירושלים יושבת ושלווה, וערי הסביבותיה והנגב השפלה יושב. Let's start from the beginning. And I'll start the story, not from Avraham Avinu, the prophet is not starting from there, and not from Yetziat Mitzrayim, not from the redemption from Egypt, but let's start from the good days of the first temple. The good days, maybe David days, King David or King Solomon, maybe Chizkiyahu, not exactly. He says there were good days. So what happened then? Let's tell the whole story. ויהי דבר אדוני אל זכריה לאמור, כה אמר אדוני צבאות לאמור, משפט אמת שפוטו, וחסד ורחמים עשו איש את אחיו, ואלמנה ויתום, גר ועני אל תעשוקו, ורעת איש אחיו אל תחשבו בלבבכם. Wow. Saying that there were good days, there was also a demand from you. You had to respond. You had to be part of it. You as a nation had to behave according to the rules and the wishes and the commandments of Hashem. And the prophets, all of them, are not talking about, and not starting with the 613 mitzvahs. In the end of the day, we have to obey and we have to keep all of them. But it's like a ladder. There is the first step and the second step and the third step. And first of all, in order to have the right to exist as Hashem nation, there is a guideline. How should we behave? And the surprising thing is that the prophets didn't start, not with Shabbos, not with kosher meals, not with going to the mikveh. All of these are very important, that are maybe the third or the fourth or the fifth step. We are building and we are climbing to the sky. But what are the bases? The basis is completely different. The bases are, 1, mishpat emet shvoto, justification or justice. Have a society and design a society where justice is being made. B, chesed verachamim asu ish et achiv. Mercy, charity, chesed. Behave like brothers in your own society. See, all the people that usually we don't see, almana, yatom, ger, ve'ani, they are the weak part of the society. Did you keep their rights? Did you give them the accessibility to the properties of the society? Don't use your power in order to push them aside and in order to, squeeze them. This is what Hashem wants, the first thing from the society. And the fourth thing is, ורעת איש אחיו אל תחשבו בלבבכם. Don't think bad things on people, on other people. Don't try to plan how to break them and how to defeat them. Try the opposite, to be good and to grow up a society that actually every day wants that the second person, the other person will have good life. These are the things that Hashem expects in the first step, and that's what we or our parents of parents, the prophet says, had to do on the good days. Unfortunately, they didn't apply it. וימאנו להקשיב. They refused to listen. ויתנו חטף סוררת ואוזניהם הכבידו משמוע. They closed their ears. Nobody wanted to behave according to these rules. וליבם שמו שמיר, the heart was like a rock. משמוע את התורה ואת הדברים אשר שלח אדוני צבאות ברוחו ביד הנביאים הראשונים, ויהי קצף גדול מאת אדוני צבאות. Because of the refusion, to do and to behave and to design our society, or our parent society in this way, actually a lot of anger there were waves of anger towards us from Hashem. We didn't listen, He didn't listen. Equally. And when we had problems, and when the big empires, Ashur, Bavel, occupied the land of Israel, there was no one that will listen to us. And actually, the destruction took place. This is the history. ויהי כאשר קרא ולא שמעו, כן יקראו ולא ישמע, אמר אדוני צבאות. And therefore, like we started this year, the nation of Israel found itself in the diaspora, all over the empires, separated, like we say on Megillat Esther, מפורד ומפוזר בין העמים, ודתיהם שונות מכל עם, without a center, without a land, without a Beis Mikdash, bad times. This is the beginning of the history. I am reminding all of us that we're waiting, where's the answer? The question was if we should continue to fast. But the prophet starts the whole story. Because you have to understand, first of all, as I said, change the concept of fasting. Who does it serve? What is the direction? What is the target? And the second thing, change your context. And you have to understand the fasting in the context, why. So we didn't get an answer yet. We started the whole story. Why did the destruction took place? Okay, the prophet continues. And he says now, you must know that history is being changed. The direction of the destruction is making a U-turn. And instead of anger, there is mercy from the divine. Instead of destruction, we are now in a period of redemption. And the prophet will say a lot of yeshkoyach to the people that decided to leave the diaspora and to come to the land of Israel after the Koresh declaration. Everything is changing towards the good direction. Okay, so we're still waiting. So what's the answer? So let's first of all read about the changes. ויהי דבר אדוני צבאות לאמור. We are in the first pasuk of the 8th chapter, זכריה. כה אמר אדוני צבאות, קינאתי לציון קנאה גדולה, וחמה גדולה קינאתי לה. כה אמר אדוני returning, שבתי אל ציון, ושכנתי, the revelation, בתוך ירושלים, ונקראה ירושלים עיר האמת. והר אדוני צבאות, הר הקודש. We are coming back. The first thing that is coming back is the divine. Ribono shel olam is coming back from above the clouds, above the sky, coming back to the land of Israel, to Jerusalem. Things, as I said before, the history is changing the direction towards the positive target. This is something that is happening, and the prophet promises. כה אמר אדוני צבאות, עוד ישבו זקנים וזקנות ברחובות ירושלים, ואיש משענתו בידו מרוב ימים, ורחובות העיר ימלאו, ילדים וילדות משחקים ברחובותיה. Our rabbi, Rav Amital, זכר צדיק לברכה, loved those psukim. Whenever children made a lot of mess in the yeshiva and shul, and everybody said shh and tried to chase them out, he said, this is the redemption. Kids are playing in our land. So all of us prefer that tefillah will be more silent and the kids will not play, make the shul as a park. But the fact that we have noisy children is redemption. And he used to say, he described his personal experience. He said that when he came to here in Israel, he was, 16, 17 years old after suffered through the Holocaust, and in Jerusalem to the yeshiva where he studied, and every day in the park he stopped and, looked on towards the children that are playing. And after a few days, he saw then when he's coming close, the kids are starting to yell and to laugh at him. Here's the crazy person that stands here and look on us as if we are something special. And he usually used to say, really believe me, I wasn't insulted. I wasn't insulted. The kids were right. Someone that sees children playing something that I never saw before, is thinking that something great is happening, he's crazy. This is normal. And I left the story in order to emphasize and in order to apply this pasuk. Jerusalem will be filled with very old people and very young people, together, grandparents and great-grandparents and children or whatever that are here. This is redemption. It will continue, the prophet says. Where's the answer about Tisha B'Av? כה אמר אדוני צבאות, כי יפלא בעיני שארית העם הזה בימים ההם, גם בעיני יפלא נאום אדוני צבאות. As if it's a great surprise for Hashem what's happening. It's a miracle. The redemption is a miracle. I can't, stop saying that the state of Israel today, first of all, is a miracle. We have problems from edge to edge. But the miracle is here. כה אמר אדוני צבאות, הנני מושיע את עמי מארץ מזרח ומארץ מבוא השמש, והבאתי אותם, ושכנו בתוך ירושלים, והיו לי לעם, ואני אהיה להם לאלוהים באמת ובצדקה. The treaty, the bris between us and Hashem will grow up from the beginning. And as you see, the prophet, first of all, promises and explains and actually is telling us to look what is happening, what is going to happen, and we are on a very good direction. And now he says, Yeshkoyach to the people that came back. כה אמר אדוני צבאות, תחזקנה ידיכם. Your hands should be very strong. השומעים בימים האלה את הדברים האלה, מפי הנביאים, אשר ביום יוסד בית אדוני צבאות ההיכל להיבנות. You are the people that are listening to the prophets, that are here. You are the people that are expecting to see the second temple, the opening, the ceremony of בית המקדש השני. כי לפני הימים ההם שכר האדם לא נהיה, ושכר הבהמה איננה. ויוצא ולבא אין שלום. There were a lot of security problems. מן הצר, ואשלח את כל האדם איש ברעהו. There were a lot of conflicts. You had tough time here, the prophet says. Hashem knows that. And he knows that even though, and nevertheless, you were here, and you are part of the redemption. Now, the prophet says, history is changing. ועתה לא כימים הראשונים אני לשארית העם הזה נאום אדוני צבאות. In the beginning, it was very difficult. Today, we are in a completely different time. כי זרע שלום, there will be peace. הגפן תיתן פריה, a lot of winery. והארץ תיתן את יבולה. והשמיים ייתנו תלם. והנחלתי את שארית העם הזה את כל אלה, והיה כאשר הייתם כללה בגויים בית יהודה ובית ישראל, כן הושיע אתכם וייתם ברכה, אל תיראו, תחזקנה ידיכם. For centuries or decades, you were the nation that everyone that wanted to talk bad things about someone said, you know what, you look exactly like the nation of Israel. Destruction, diaspora, hunger, distribution, whatever. Today, your title is completely different. Today, when everyone in the world wants to bless someone, he says, I'm blessing you that you'll be like the nation of Israel. That means, the prophet says, everything is changing to the good direction. כי כה אמר אדוני צבאות כאשר זממתי להרע לכם, בהקציף אבותיכם אותי, אמר אדוני צבאות ולא נחמתי, like I did when the destruction took place. כן שבתי, זממתי בימים האלה להיטיב את ירושלים ואת בית יהודה. There will be good days, Don't be threat. But now the prophet says, what is the demands from us? What we should do? What is actually the expectation of Hashem from us? And the answer is very simple. You remember the beginning of the prophecy? You remember what Hashem said? That the destruction took place because of the relationship ben Adam lechavero, because of a society with, denying the importance of truth, because a society that actually is using the power in order to abuse the low-level people. I'm talking from the economic point of view. The lonely, the ger, the yatom, the almana, the widow, the orphan. You remember that? So the answer is very simple. What we should do? We should now build and reconstruct all the reasons that actually causes the destruction. And listen very carefully because it's so relevant. אלה הדברים אשר תעשו. Those are the things we should do. דברו אמת איש את רעהו. The first thing is the truth. No fake news and no sarcasm and all the different ways where we are not honest, where we are talking without dignity. This is the first demand. דברו אמת איש את רעהו. B. אמת ומשפט שלום שפטו בשעריכם. That it build a society with justice, with peace, something that is a real thing, that we should behave according to it. ואיש את רעת רעהו אל תחשבו בלבבכם. Don't figure out constantly how to win and how to destroy someone else and how to, you'll have the victory and he will have the loss. Think good things about people and try that everyone will be satisfied. That everyone will be able to enhance, to promote, to grow up, to be happy. And it's a win-win society. ושבועת שקר אל תאהבו. Again, the truth. This is the first layer, the first step in the ladder that we shall build. This is the answer to the question, what we should do. Now, actually, as I said before, this is the answer of the question if we should continue to fast. Because the answer is not yes or no. Not the fasting is in the center. The question is, are we a society that achieved those achievements? Are we a society that are behaving according to those principles, to those lovely words? If the answer is yes, then we can stop fasting. But because all of us know that the answer is still no with a capital N, therefore the prophet doesn't have to say anything. Because he doesn't want to give a halachic answer, yes, no. He wants to inspire us. And he wants that the day of fasting, Tisha B'Av, will be something that we will reconnect with our targets, with our goals, with our ideology, and with the way that a society that believes in Hashem should behave. Ben Adam lechavero. And the prophet says, one day those fasting days will be canceled. It's not only that they'll be canceled, they'll be shifted into holidays. ויהי דבר אדוני צבאות אליי לאמור, כה אמר אדוני צבאות, צום הרביעי וצום החמישי וצום השביעי וצום העשירי יהיה לבית יהודה לששון ולשמחה ולמועדים טובים והאמת והשלום אהבו. It will be a great celebration when those days will come. But it's a process. And this is the thing that first of all we should do. And this is the game changer in our society. And the prophet ends with the idea that from Avraham Avinu we know It's not only an internal Jewish way of behaving. We have also a message to the whole world. In the beginning, in the first words that Hashem told Avraham Avinu, our father, he said also, "V'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama." All the nations on earth will be blessed because of you. And Yeshayahu speaks about Acharit Hayamim, and also the Navi says, כה אמר אדוני צבאות, עוד אשר יבואו עמים ויושבי ערים רבות, והלכו יושבי אחת אל אחת לאמור, נלכה הלוך לכלות את פני אדוני ולבקש את אדוני צבאות, אלך גם אני, they will participate. ובאו עמים רבים וגויים עצומים לבקש את אדוני צבאות בירושלים ולכלות את פני אדוני. כה אמר אדוני צבאות בימים ההם אשר יחזיקו 10 אנשים מכל לשונות הגויים, ויחזיקו בכנף איש יהודי לאמור, נלכה עמכם, כי שמענו אלוהים עמכם. Hashem is with us. Now, as I said, there's no answer here in the prophecy. Everyone understood then what should be the spiritual life and environment and behavior on Tisha B'Av. What should we think about? And what changes should they do? I think this is the most important chapter to learn on Tisha B'Av. There's a lot more. We have to learn about the destruction. We have to learn about why it happened. We have to learn about the relationship with Hashem after the destruction. There are a lot of stories breaking our heart. But this is the spine. Because the spine is one. The fasting day is not something that stands by itself. It has a mission. And our approach towards the fasting, towards not eating, should be that this is not the goal. This is the environment. This is the opportunity. And the second thing is, even though the history, thank God, Baruch Hashem, changed the direction. Even though we have a lot of schus to live in this generation, even though we are celebrating in a very, very high level of goodness, Yom HaAtzmaut, we should remind ourselves that we have goals and we have things that we have to do in order to have the right, to have the schus to continue this process. And the first level is exactly like the prophet said, V'haemet v'shalom ehavu, to be a society of a lot of truth, a lot of peace, justice, charity, all those ideas. And the most important thing, think good things about doing good things to other people. This is the way to build the ladder and to continue the redemption. And after Tisha B'Av, we are concentrating in the 7 weeks of reading the prophecies of the Geula, of the redemption.